Lunch and Learn class. So I hope you have your own mirror at home preparing lunch for after class. Um, Let me begin by thanking the sponsors for today's class. Class is sponsored by Ronald and Trina Thompson. Thank you very much. And it's also sponsored by Michael Goldenfeld. It was his birthday on the class. His birthday was on the 11th of the month of Nisan. He sponsored the class on the week that we had to cancel because of social distancing. So a happy birthday, Michael, and thank you as well. Thank you all for joining on Zoom, our new method of teaching. And hopefully we'll be able to be back together in one room soon, but perhaps once we get used to this, we'll have it both ways. We'll have it live, and we'll also be able to put it on there live so that people all over the country and all over the world are able to join us for our Wednesday afternoon get-together. Let me begin with a simple story. A daughter complained to her father about her life, and things were difficult, things were hard for her, and she didn't know how to get through, how to make it through. And so she complained to her father that she was just tired of fighting, tired of the struggle. And it seemed just as soon as she solved one problem, there was another problem. Her father was a chef by trade. And so he said, "Come with me." And he took his daughter to the kitchen. He filled up 3 pots with water, and he placed each one of them on the stove on a high flame. In the first pot, he placed some carrots. In the second pot, he placed some eggs. And in the third pot, he placed some coffee beans. Well, the daughter couldn't figure out, what does this have to do with her issue? What does it have to do with her problems? She's complaining to her father about life, and her father is cooking lunch, a strange lunch, eggs, coffee, and carrots. Well, the father didn't say a word, and 20 minutes goes by, and he shuts the flames, and he fishes out the carrots and puts it into a bowl, fishes out the eggs and puts it into a bowl, and takes some of the coffee and puts it into a cup. And he turns to his daughter and says, "So what did you learn?" She said, "What did I learn? I didn't learn anything. I don't know what's going on." "Well, what do you see?" I see carrots, I see eggs, and I see coffee." So he says, "Touch the carrots." So she touches the carrots. It was warm and it was soft. And then says, "Now take one of the eggs and break it open." She breaks it open, and it's a hard-boiled egg. Okay. "And what about the coffee?" Well, she takes a sip of the coffee. It tastes good, has a good aroma. And she's very confused right now as to what's this whole experiment all about. And so he explained that each of the 3, the coffee, the carrots, and the egg, faced the same adversity, boiling water. But each reacted very differently than the other. The carrot went in strong. Carrot was a strong carrot. It was hard. It was unrelenting. But after being subjected to the boiling water, it softened and it became weak. The egg had been fragile. It had this thin outer shell that protected its liquid interior. But after sitting through the boiling water, its inside became hardened. The coffee beans were unique, however, because after the coffee beans were in the boiling water, they changed the water. The water became part of the coffee. "Which are you?" the father chef asks his daughter. "When the difficult times, when the boiling water comes knocking on your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot? Are you an egg? Or are you a coffee bean?" How do we react to difficult times? Are we like the carrot that seemed hard, but with pain we wilt and we become soft and we lose our strength and we lose our faith and we question our faith? Are we like the egg, which starts off with a soft heart, but after facing hardships, we become hardened, we become stiff? Or are we like the coffee bean? Not only won't you make me wither away, nor will I turn cold and distant, but I'll even get better. I'll give off a beautiful aroma. I'll taste great. and I'll make the rest of the water taste great as well. Jewish teachings and Jewish history has always taught us to be like the coffee. When things are at their worst, we get better, we get stronger, we stand up to the challenge. My dear friends, we're facing a tough time, and it's been a challenging time, and the last 6-7 weeks have been extremely difficult. It's been difficult on the entire world. It's been difficult on the world economically. It's been difficult for those that live paycheck to paycheck and don't know how they're going to put food on the table. It's been difficult. It's been difficult staying in a home for 6-7 weeks, not able to do the things you're accustomed to doing. It's been difficult spiritually, not able to go to a shul, to a synagogue, to pray. We weren't even able on Passover to go recite the Yizkor prayer. We weren't able to join each other for our Seder. It's been very difficult. It's been very difficult for those that are ill, that are suffering, that are in pain, that are in hospitals, that are on ventilators. It's difficult for them, difficult for their families, difficult for their loved ones. And of course, it's been difficult for those that have lost loved ones, people that have passed away. In our community, in our Chabad community, in the Crown Heights section of Brooklyn and then throughout Brooklyn and New York, there's been tremendous loss of life. I've lost relatives, I've lost friends, I've lost camp counselors, I've lost teachers, I've lost my rebbes from yeshiva. Many have lost their lives to this coronavirus. So I don't underestimate the pain that's out there, and I don't underestimate the difficult times and the challenges that we are living through. But at the same time, we need to be like the coffee. We can't wilt away, we can't become cold, we can't lose our faith. We need to strengthen ourselves and strengthen our resolve. And we need to strengthen this resolve to be like the coffee, and that is to bring love and to bring this great aroma out there to others. No, we cannot be perhaps together because of social distancing, but that doesn't stop us from reaching out and helping, from reaching out and sharing, from reaching out and spreading love and care and concern. We have to be there for each other. And we have to reach out every single day, find people that you can call, that you can reach out to. There's been such an outpouring of support for one another. It has been extremely inspiring to see. I know before Passover, we put out a call for those that could help to make sure that everyone had food for Passover. And again, the response has been so overwhelming. We have to be there for each other. And we have to do this as well spiritually for ourselves. The opportunity that we now have to study, the opportunity that we now have to learn together is greater than it's ever been before. It used to be that if you lived in the area, you can come to our class. If you can find a parking space, you can come to our class. If you are free between 12:30 and 1:30, you can come to our class. Now, everybody can come. I see we're closing in on 100 students right now. We're close. We have 95 students with us. Well, we couldn't fit 95 students in the room downstairs, but we can fit on Zoom right now. But there's so many opportunities to learn, and we're offering it here at the Jewish Academy. Every single day in the evening, there's a rabbi, there's a rebbitzin giving a live class. There are lectures that are on. Our lectures have now been viewed by thousands and thousands of people, both on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, various different communication opportunities that we have. And there's so much learning available. So we have to take this time to also strengthen our soul, which will help strengthen our resolve. I also want to compliment those of you that have reached out to us to offer your services, to volunteer, to bring food to senior citizens that can't leave their houses and bring their medicine and pick up their medicine. So many of you that are on in this class right now are those volunteers, and I applaud you. And I literally, if I can say any words of appreciation and of inspiration of you who've inspired us day in and day out, you're calling to find out how you can help a senior citizen. And understand for the seniors and those in senior homes, they're locked in rooms now for 6-7 weeks. They can't come out. I mean, the staff of these senior homes have to be applauded, as well as the doctors and nurses on the front lines of this battle. Let's all find a way to help. Let's all be there for each other. Let's strengthen our own souls. And let's get through this as a stronger people. We have been studying the subject of the chosen people for some time now. What I would like to do this week and next week is in a way summarize a lot of our lessons that we have discussed. What does it mean to be a chosen people? Why are we chosen? How do we behave chosen? And I'll start with some of the thoughts I shared on the last class that we had together, in which not everyone was able to attend. But there's a British author, his name is A.L. Rouse. He's a non-Jewish author, and he published a book called Historians I Have Known. In his lifetime, he had the opportunity to meet and to interview many historians. And he writes a book about that, but he has this line in this book that stood out. And this is the line he writes: if there is any honor at all in the world that I should like, it would be to be an honorary Jewish citizen. That's an extraordinary remark coming from a very wise man nearing the end of his life. And he's reflecting on all of that life. And he's reflecting on the history of that life and what the history lessons that he took from this life. And as a British individual, he knows about honors. This is a man who had written over 100 books. And here he is, he's saying that if you can give me any medal and any award or even being knighted, still, the one honor that I would treasure more than anything else would be to be an honorary Jewish citizen. And he says that this would be above all, more than anything else. Now, why would he say that? Was it because more than any other people in history, the Jewish people cared about learning? They focused on education. They focused on the mind, on intelligence. Was it that they had contributed vastly out of proportion to their numbers? Many of the greatest intellects of the modern world were Jewish. Was it that they were the first monotheists, the first to believe in a God that transcended the universe, that created this world with forgiveness and with love, making humanity in his image and endowing us with a dignity that no other faith has ever equaled? Was it that the Jewish people survived for so long? Twice as long as Christianity, 3 times as long as Islam, and under some of the most adverse conditions ever experienced by a people. Is that the reason he said that he would love the honor of being an honorary Jew more than anything else? Was it given that Rouse was a historian and the fact that the Jewish people were the first historians, the first to see God in history, the first even to think in terms of history? Was it given that he was a writer of literature and the fact that the Hebrew Bible is of the greatest works of literature? Was it the vision of Moses that inspired him? Was it the poetry of King David in the book of Psalms that inspired him? Was it the social conscience of Amos, the prophet, that inspired him? Was it the hope of Isaiah's writings that inspired him? Was it the wisdom of Ecclesiastics or the passion of the Songs of Songs, Shir Hashirim, written by King Solomon? Or was it that the Jewish people have given humanity its most basic moral concepts? The belief in free will, the belief in responsibility, the belief in justice and the rule of law, the focus of chesed, of kindness in our religion, the importance of compassion, of tzedakah, and the principles of equity and equality amongst people. I don't know, because I didn't interview A.L. Rouse. I just read the book. But I know this. If they offered any one of us the honor of being some professor, honorary professor of Harvard University, we would be touched by it. Wow, it would be something that we would tell our children, our grandchildren, and make sure our great-grandchildren knew about it as well. For those from Britain, if they were to offer you to become a knight, it would be such a great honor, a great kibbud, an honor. Wow. There are honors that we hear about. In the world of sports, there's the MVP award. These are great honors. But if we were to listen to what A.L. Rouse writes in this book, he says that we, the Jewish people, already have an honor that's even greater than all of these. The honor of being a member of the chosen people. The honor of being part of the Jewish people. Sometimes we lack perspective. I'll give you an example. In the days of driving, in the days of traffic, and you would be going in bumper to bumper traffic, whether to work or for carpool duties, wherever it is that you were going, and you were in that traffic jam. Remember those days? We used to kvetch about them. Now we would love to have those days back, huh? If you're in the traffic jam and you're in bumper to bumper traffic, what's your view in front of you? You see the car ahead of you. You perhaps are reading the car in front of you's bumper stickers quite a few times already. You're either applauding them or you're angry at them. And perhaps you can see a car or two ahead of that. So you see you're in a car jam, a parking lot. The freeway has turned into a parking lot. You know that, you feel that, you sense that, and you can see it, but you can only see a few cars ahead of you. You don't see a half a mile ahead. You don't see a full mile ahead. But what if you were in an airplane? What if you were in a helicopter? And you didn't just see a car ahead of you, but you were able to see everything ahead of you. You were able to see where the freeway would clear. You were able to see the cause of the traffic jam. You were able to see it all. You would understand it all. Suddenly you would have a greater vision. Sometimes we need to see the whole landscape to truly appreciate what's in front of us. Caught in the thick of Jewish life, down here on the ground, so to speak, we don't always see its beauty. We don't always see its grandeur. We don't always see its spiritual passion. We don't always see its moral power. Another author, William Rees-Mogg, wrote, one of the gifts of Jewish culture, the gifts of Jewish culture to Christianity, is that it taught Christians to think like Jews. Any modern man who has not learned to think as though he were a Jew can hardly be said to have learned to think at all. What a powerful statement. That the greatest gift we did is we made them think like us a little bit. That they took from our teachings, that they took from our ways of lives, and they incorporated into their ways of life. You see, when we're sitting on the freeway in traffic, we don't see that. We see one car ahead of us. We see just what today is. We don't see all of history. We don't see how we change the world. We don't see how we have affected in the good every single human being on the face of the earth because we're stuck in a traffic jam. Winston Churchill said, some people like the Jews and some do not. But no thoughtful man can deny the fact that they are beyond question the most formidable and most remarkable race which has ever appeared in the world. These people were telling us something from a distance that we sitting in our metaphorical traffic jam don't always see. We see the road, but we don't see the landscape. We see the car in front of us, but not the open space a half a mile ahead. Judaism really was world-changing, world-changing. Two other religions, Christianity and Islam, borrowed from it and became the faith of half of the 7 billion people alive today. Judaism has been like a sun sending out rays in all directions while remaining itself the source. Why? What was the source of this power, of this influence? And what does it have to do with us today, with you and with me, here and now? The answer, I think, is that we tend to become what we believe. Experiments have repeatedly shown that when teachers have high expectations of their students, the students do extremely well. When a teacher has low expectations of their students, the students don't do as well. No religion, no culture, no civilization has ever had higher expectation of the human being than Judaism. We are each, says the Torah, created in the image and in the likeness of God. We are gifted with the freedom and we're blessed by the intellect that God has given us. One life, says the sages, is like a universe, an entire universe. Destroy a life and you destroy a universe. Save a life and you've saved the entire universe. We are called upon, says the Talmud, to be God's partners in this world of creation, in the work of God in this creation. Every individual, says Maimonides, should see him or herself and the world as evenly poised on a scale where balanced between good and evil, so that our next act, your next act, my next act, can tilt the balance of our life and the entire world by the one good act that we do. That's what Judaism says to us. That's, so to say, the pressure it puts on us. The whole world is in your hands. You help one person, you've changed an entire world. That's the expectations that Judaism has and the responsibility it places on each and every single human being. Now, though some of these ideas were later borrowed by others, by Christianity, by Islam, by secular philosophy, no group has ever believed in them so deeply or lived out their implications so consistently. Jews have had an influence out of all proportion to their numbers because they believed in the individual and in his or her power to change the world for the better, believing that God has high expectations of them, and therefore they lived up to those expectations and they did great things. And so again, A.L. Rouse, if I had the choice of all cultures in the world, I would choose the highest honor would be to be an honorary Jew. For us that have been born into this or converted into this, we have to remember each and every day what an honor we are, what an honor we have to be part of the chosen people. Now, how does that actually make a difference in our lives, in the individual lives? I understand the big picture, how Judaism, the beliefs and the teachings of Judaism have changed the world. But what about me as an individual? What about you as an individual? You see, we are as big as the ideals by which we live. We only have one life to live. So we have to choose these ideals very carefully. What a strange world it is in which we value people so often by what they earn or what they own, or the clothes that they wear, or the car that they drive, or the houses that they live in, or the vacations that they take. Now, these things are not unimportant. There was a great rabbi from the times of the Talmud, his name was Rav, and he said this: in the world to come, we will have to give an account of every legitimate pleasure we denied ourselves in this life, which means God gives us gifts and God gives us pleasures, and we're supposed to enjoy the ride in this world. But it's to be looked at as the gift wrapping of the gift, not the gift itself. The gift itself is life. All the extra stuff, that's gift wrapping paper. You see, there's good reasons why the world wants us to focus our lives on the gift wrapping, that the most important thing in life is how much we earn, that the most important thing is the material possessions that we have, because that helps the economy, because it helps business. And so every single advertisement will be trying to sell you something. And advertisements will have a way to get to you, whether through television commercials or billboards or newspaper ads or social media advertisements, or even just having a product on a television set. They're all advertisements, and they're all trying to say something to you. And they're trying to tell you that your life has no value, that your life is meaningless. Do you know why? Because you don't own this car. If you own this type of car, this new one, this new model, then you mean something. Then you can zoom around this mountaintop at 100 miles an hour. You can do crazy things, but you need to own this car first. If you own the suit that's made by this brand, now you're a somebody. Now you'll get respect. And on and on and on. All of these commercials and advertisements are trying to tell us that there's something missing in our lives, because that's the way our economy works. They're trying to sell you on a product, and you'll buy into the product, and then you'll find out that it still doesn't go ahead and create that happiness and that joy that you thought would come with it. You like the car ride and you like the clothing, but it's still lacking something. But, you know, the economy is important, and so we don't want all the economy to shut down, and so advertisements do tend to have a way with us. It's an interesting period of time that we're living in right now, where suddenly not too much shopping we can do. not too much driving we can do, not too many events to get all dressed up and verputzt that we can go to. So what are we left with? We're left with life itself, life with our family, life with our spirituality. You see, we have to make space for the things that really matter in life, relationships and marriage and family and being part of a community and celebrating and giving thanks and being part of tradition and pursuing wisdom, and pursuing faith and its blessings, giving to others and sharing with others. There has to be something about life that's bigger than just self-interests, and that lasts longer than a lifetime. There are times when we have to let our soul sing. Let our soul talk to us. Let our soul dictate what's important. Let our soul express gratitude and know that what we have is the ultimate gift of God. I put it this way, sometimes we need to know the difference between important and urgent. You know, we tend to focus on everything that's urgent. Urgent is a deadline. It must be finished today. It must be done today. The deal has to happen today. So much of our life is dictated by what's urgent, and we forget that which is really important. What we have seen over the last 6-7 weeks is we have realized that that which is urgent, we've been able to live without. We have to focus on that which is important. Our health, our family, our friends, our well-being, the health of our world. Important matters. And this is what Judaism has always been telling us. This is the message of Shabbat that Judaism has been talking about. Focus on what's important, not what's urgent. And we can't leave it till it's too late. Judaism tells us, make it your focus today. You ever hear the story of Alfred Nobel? He was the man that we know as from the Nobel Prizes, the Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize in Science and in Literature. How did it come about? In 1888, Nobel was the man known as the one who invented dynamite. And he found himself reading a newspaper one morning, and to his great shock, he was reading his own obituary. You see, the newspaper made a mistake. It was his brother that died, but they thought Alfred died. And so they already have pre-written obituaries for all famous people. So they published his obituary. And there he is reading the newspaper, having his cup of coffee with his Danish, and he's reading, and it says, Alfred Nobel, the dynamite king, the individual who made his fortune from explosives, died today. And it hit him, not just that the newspaper made a mistake and that he was really alive, but that this is the way the world saw him. He was the dynamite king. He's the one that made his wealth of making explosives. And he realized that he needed to change something with whatever time he had left in this world, so that Alfred Nobel was no longer synonymous with dynamite. And that's when he donated his fortune to create these 5 annual prizes, which has been since 1888, the prizes in physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, and peace, so that he be remembered for that, so that he would focus on that which is important and not which is urgent. And that's the question Judaism makes us confront each and every single day. Some of you may remember a film from many years ago. It was called Pay It Forward. Pay It Forward. And the hero of this film was this young schoolboy. And he was given an assignment by his social science teacher. And the assignment was to come up with a practical plan to change the world and improve humankind. That's quite an assignment to give a school kid. Come up with an assignment how you, a child, can change the world. And so he takes the assignment rather seriously, and he's moved by people he sees living in difficulties, a homeless man, his own mother who was an alcoholic, his teacher who was badly scarred, and he comes up with this plan. He comes up with this idea. You see, normally, kindness is reciprocated. The person that does an act of kindness to you, you at some point in your life will do an act of kindness back to them. So kindness goes back and forth and back and forth. But what if we didn't pay it back, but we paid it forward? What if any time someone did an act of kindness for you, what you would then do is pay it back by paying it forward, doing an act of kindness for someone else? And that's what he started, this experiment of pay it forward. Someone does something good for you, don't pay me back, do something good for someone else. It's a wonderful film, and it ends on a note of tragedy. Because at the end of this film, the child that comes up with this idea, which spreads throughout the entire city, community, and eventually spreads throughout the world, the child dies. But the story is a tutorial in hope, because the child succeeds in changing lives in ways no one could have foreseen. You see, mortality is written into the human condition, but so is the possibility of immortality. Immortality in the good that we do, that can continue even after our lifetime, long after we're here, to beget further good. There are lives that defeat death and redeem existence from tragedy. None of us knows how long we're going to live. We should all live long, happy, healthy years until 120. But what Judaism teaches us is that it's not just all about what we accomplish in our lifetime, but it's what we accomplish to live on beyond us. The kindness that we give forward that will live on in the next person and the next person and the next person. You see, Judaism has to remain our moral compass. It has to be our guide, how we make our decisions in life. We now know that we can't take morality for granted. Even people in positions of trust can betray that trust. We also know why. Not because they're evil, but because they have a creative conscience. If everyone else is doing it, why shouldn't I? Who will notice? Besides, it's a brutal, competitive world out there. And strictly speaking, I think the act is legal. And even if it's not, I'm sure I can find an attorney that can find a way to say that it is, and the gain is going to be great, and the downside is very small. That's how intelligent people come to do foolish things. So if you want to be protected against doing foolish things, be guided by a wisdom that's higher than your own and older than your contemporaries. When it comes to moral wisdom, there is no tradition that is stronger than Judaism. The voice of Torah is the moral voice of Western civilization. The voice of Torah is the voice that says, love your neighbor as yourself. The voice of Torah is the voice that says, love the stranger, for you were once strangers. We started off as slaves in Egypt so that we will always remember where we began and what it was like to be a stranger, and what it was like to be an immigrant. The Torah will tell us, justice, justice shall you pursue. The Torah will tell us to act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. We need this compass. We need something in our day-to-day lives to tell us what is a yes and what is a no. Albert Einstein spoke about the almost fanatical love of justice that made him thank his stars that he belonged to the Jewish tradition. Of course, Jews don't have a monopoly on conscience. We don't claim to have a monopoly on virtue. We believe that the moral commands have been binding since the first human being set foot on earth. Whatever you choose to do, there will be times when you will be tempted. There are times that we are tempted to cut corners, to take advantage of a situation, to bend the rules to our own advantage, to use privileged access or insider information, to do something you know you should not do, but other people seem to be getting away with. There is no life without temptation. That is when all the habits of the heart that Judaism inculcates makes a difference. Judaism, from when we're a child, builds and builds and builds into our psyche, into our heart, into our soul, into our mind. But there's a God watching. More important than the police, more important than the FBI, more important than the prosecutor, more important than government, more important than the teacher catching you chewing gum in the classroom, is to remember that we stand before God at all times. and we answer to God. So when we're tempted to cut those corners, we open our Torah, we take from the guide, we take from the book that we have been studying, and we bring it and make it part of our lives. We make our decisions based on it. The standards that we know that are expected of us. And to know that God knows our behavior. God knows of our struggles, and God gives us the strength to overcome. These are the messages of what it's like to be part of the chosen people. In Judaism, we eventually learn to thank God for whispering the word that is the hardest word for us to hear. The word no. You know, the 613 commandments in the Torah, 248 of them are positive. 365, more than the majority, are negative. Don't do that. Because most of our day, we're struggling with the no, the things we know we shouldn't do, but we simply feel weak in overcoming the temptation. The Torah, Judaism, Jewish teachings gives us that strength to be able to say no. We also touched upon the subject of why me? Why the need for each and every Jew? I know the need for there to be a Jewish people in the world, but why me, the individual? It's an interesting thing. There are not many Jews in the world today. We represent less than a fifth of 1% of the population of the world. You heard that number? Not less than 1%. We represent less than 1/5 of 1% of the world population. It is so hard to believe when you think about how much of the news we take up, how much the news is focused on Jews, the Jewish people, Israel, Torah, 1/5 of 1%. You may want to think of it this way. It's perhaps easier. For every Jew alive today, there are 100 Muslims and 183 Christians. Every one Jew, you would have a room, and in that room there would be 100 Muslims and 183 Christians to equal the amount of one Jew as you look at world population. We are a relatively tiny people. As I've often said, we are less than the statistical error in a Chinese census. You know, they'll never get it right, so there's always an asterisk that says, you know, we're as close as can be. Well, that asterisk represents a number that's too small to even count. That's us. And if you looked on the map and you looked on the globes and you look at Israel, Israel is so small that they can't even fit the letters of Israel into Israel. It's always somewhere floating in the Mediterranean Sea and saying that it's Israel over there because we're that small. We're a sliver, a small piece of land. Look at the whole Middle East, and then you look at the size of Israel. It's that, and yet so much focus, so much noise that comes from that one sliver, so much goodness, so much help, so much relief, so much help to all civilization that come from that one sliver. We're a tiny people. We always were. Moses said 3,300 years ago, and by the way, those that have been part of this class for some time, we're going to go back to studying text in another week or two. This is the verse that we're actually up to in the book of Deuteronomy. So I'm reading to you from the text of Deuteronomy. Not because you are numerous did God love you or choose you, but because you are the smallest of nations. So in the very beginning of time, Moses passes on to the Jewish people. I'll give you the scene. They're standing on the other side of the Jordan River. They're about to enter the land of Israel. Moses is about to retire. He's passing on the baton to Joshua, and he's making his final speech. And in this final speech, he says, I want you to know that it's not because you're the largest people does God love you, that you're the most numerous, most powerful. No, it's because you're the smallest. I often wondered about this. Why? Why do we always have to be so small? What's so great about being small? Now, one reason to explain how it is statistically that we are small is simply persecution. We were never allowed by the world to get big. And every time we multiplied and multiplied, you see what happens. Going to the very first time, Pharaoh fears the multiplication of the Jews, and he comes up with a plot to deal with the numerous amount of Jews. But this happened throughout our history. Any time that the world felt that the Jews are becoming too numerous, they made sure to take us down a few notches. Many Jews died because of their faith. Millions of Jews died because of their faith. And so statistically, yeah, we lost in this past century 6 million of our people. Can you imagine if those 6 million people survived? Can you imagine if those 6 million married and they had children and grandchildren, what our numbers would be just today? So if you multiply all the persecutions that we have experienced throughout all of history, statistically, I understand why the number is small. Another reason, and another good one, is that we've never sought to convert the world. Other religions make it mitzvah number one. Your ticket to heaven is you convert someone else to your religion. By us, not only is it not looked at as a mitzvah, it's not something that we encourage. We don't go out and proselytize. We don't go out and preach, no, you need to be a Jew to be good. You need to be a Jew to have your relationship with God. We don't say that to the world. We don't go out publicly and make campaigns. If someone is interested in the role of a chosen people, if someone's interested in the role of the Jewish people, if someone studies the Torah and wants to be a part of it, we have a welcome mat. You're welcome to study and you're welcome to join, and we have an open door policy in which you can convert to Judaism. But our conversion has been very, very different than Christianity and Islam. In Christianity and Islam, it was the mitzvah, so to say, to go out and convert the world. And quite often, sadly and tragically, that didn't just come along with persuasion. It wasn't a knock on your door, let's have a religious discussion. It was a knock on your door with a sword in the hand saying, convert or else, bow or else, become part of us or else. And the culture of Islamic fundamentalism still exists today that way. And that the world must become Islam in order for the world to be saved. But we believed, and we still do, that you don't have to be Jewish to encounter God. You don't have to be Jewish to get to heaven. That's one of Judaism's most beautiful beliefs, that every human being has a pathway to God. For Jews, we have a very specific pathway. God gave us a responsibility of being a chosen people, to be a light unto the world, to bring blessings to all the families on the face of the earth, to teach the world, to guide the world, to be a moral compass for the world. But it never told us that you need to convert the world. Be who you are, Mr. World, but be good. You want to know how to get to heaven? Easy. Be good. You want to know how to speak to God? Start talking. He's listening. This was our message for the world, that God is everywhere and that God is the God of all of humanity, and that every human being has their pathway to God, and every human being can find their path to God. Not convert to us and be us. If not, you're not good. We've never said that to the world. In this global age, with its multi-faith societies, the sooner we recognize the integrity of other sources of wisdom and virtue, the better. We don't monopolize wisdom. We don't monopolize someone else's faith. So for that second reason, that we've never gone ahead and proselytized the world, we haven't added to our numbers by saying this community must convert or else. Our numbers stayed small. It didn't multiply. And at the same time, we're being persecuted, so our numbers were dropping. But there's a third reason. And I think that goes back to the verse of Deuteronomy that Moses says 3,300 years ago. And it's hinted to in a strange story in the 8th chapter of the book of Judges. This is a story set more than 3,000 years ago, in the days before there was a king in Israel. God tells Gideon was a charismatic Jewish leader. Wasn't a king, but he was a Jewish leader at the time. And God instructs him to go and fight the Midianites. The Midianites kept on attacking Israel. They were this pain on Israel's side. They kept on doing attacks and attacks and attacks. And at some point, God says, Genug shine, enough. And he tells Gideon, you're going to have to wage war against the Midianites. So Gideon goes ahead and he assembles an army. And the book of Judges tells us it was an army of 32,000 men. God tells Gideon, too many. It's too big of an army. Tell anyone that wants to go home, if they'd rather be home than fight in the battlefield, it's okay to go home. 22,000 of the 32,000 went home. 10,000 remain. Gideon turns to God. We good now? God says, no, still a little too many. So he tells Gideon to take them to a river and see how they drink water and send home all those who bend down to drink. If they don't find a vessel to bring up to them, but they bend down and they drink like that, they're not part of the army. Send them home. So he takes them to a river and he tells them all to drink. 9,700 of them bend down to drink the water. And he tells them all to go home because that was the instruction that God had told them. So he's left with 300 people from his original army of 32,000, a ridiculously small number to fight a war against the Midianites. And God calls out to Gideon and he says, okay, and now go fight. I tell you something, it wasn't easy to be a prophet of God. You know, we read in their names and we always talk about Isaiah and Ezekiel. It wasn't easy because God asked them to do things that were not popular and never really made sense. He had an army of 32,000 men and God knocks down his army first to 10,000 and then to 300 and he wants them to go wage war. But you know the end of the story, of course, so you can figure it out. He was victorious with an army of 300 men. Somewhere in that story lies the secret of Jewish smallness. Through the story of the Jews, God is telling the world that a nation need not be big to be great. How much of world history is about nations thinking their only way to greatness is to be big and to be powerful? And God is telling the world, no, you can be big and great, but be small. You can change the world and still be small. Small groups can make a big difference, which is why Judaism and the Jewish people have contributed to just about every field of the human endeavor out of proportion to their numbers. You don't have to be big to contribute. You don't have to be big to change the world. You don't have to be big to influence. It takes one teacher, and that teacher can teach thousands of students and change the lives of thousands of students. The teacher just has to remember at all times that he or she is the teacher. Because if the teacher suddenly thinks, you know what, I just want to be like one of you and sits down in the lecture hall and says, I'm just like you, no one will have learned a thing. But if the teacher stands up and teaches, everyone benefits. And the teacher, again, doesn't have to be this mass army. It can be an army of one. But that places enormous responsibility on the teacher, or in my example, on the Jewish people. The responsibility that we carry on our shoulders of being a part of this chosen people, the future of Judaism and the future of the world is in our hands. We don't have to be big. We have to be committed. We have to understand our role. We have to know our role. We have to be proud of our role. And we have to stand up and teach and give and share and model Torah, live Torah, so that the world will learn from it, so that everyone will see that traffic jam, but they'll be able to see what's going on ahead, see the whole picture. And so I urge each and every one of you, let's be proud of being a member of the chosen people. Let's be proud of our Judaism. Let's not give up. Let's not abandon our faith. Let's not walk away from our people, from our history, from our heritage. Let's contribute to it. Let's get involved in its discussion. Let's bring our world closer to the way it ought to be. As A.L. Rao said, it's such an honor to be. It would be such an honor to be an honorary Jew. or for us that are Jewish. Let's wear that honor with pride, and let's show this honor to all of humanity and to all of the world. I want to thank you all for joining today. I'm sorry that I won't be having Mira bring out her lunch. You're going to have to go to your own kitchen or have someone else prepare lunch for you. But I do want to take this opportunity to invite you to other classes that are taking place throughout the week. My wife Mati is doing a class tonight at 8 o'clock for women on the subject of Jewish ethics of our fathers. Rabbi Levine is teaching a class on Jewish mysticism as well. There's a class tomorrow called Going Kabbalistic. I'll be giving a lecture Monday night at 8 o'clock. The lecture is called Close Encounters of the Holy Kind. For those of you that may remember Steven Spielberg's film called Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I have a little bit of a different take called Close Encounters of the Holy Kind. And we'll see you back next Wednesday. The way I'm going to work questions and answers with this class is I'm going to give you my cell number if you want to jot it down, if you have a pen near you. And next week during class, if you have particular questions, the last 5 minutes of class, I'll check my text and see if you've texted in any questions. The cell number is 818-516-0444. If you ever just want to say hello, I welcome your text as well. My email address is rabbi@chabadconejo.com. Stay in touch that way. And this way we can always communicate during the week if you have particular questions as well. Just drop me an email. If I don't answer you at once, I'll get to it. Sometimes I get a little bit backed up, but sometimes in the late night I catch up as well. So please stay in touch either by cell or by email throughout this ordeal, throughout this challenge that we're facing as a world. We'll get through it if we're together, even if we have to be apart. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Stay healthy, stay strong, stay focused, stay filled with hope. God bless you all.